I lost my mother when I was 10 years old. She passed away from an accidental overdose. And honestly, it changed the trajectory of my childhood. My story and the people, the guests that I have, their stories would assist people in different areas where they're uncomfortable. My show is to give them a voice, to vocalize what it is that they do, to vocalize their businesses, to exhibit who they are. They are hidden gems in the community. We'll be talking about anything from relationships to families to owning businesses and being full-time entrepreneurs, the whole nine. I'm a writer, I'm a business owner, I'm a mother of two. I am an innovator, cultivator, developer, determined. I'm Sandra Morrison, aka Sandra the author. Welcome to Sitting with Sandra. Alrighty. Hello. Thank you for tuning in to Sitting with Sandra. I am your host, Sandra Morrison, aka Sandra the author. And today we have a pretty touchy subject. We have Miss Krissie here. Krissie is the mother of the late rapper, Las Vegas native, Luccy 2 times. And so we'll be discussing his legacy and the tragedy that occurred. So Krissie, how are you today?
I'm okay.
That's good.
I'm okay today.
That's good to hear. It's good to hear. I know some days are harder than others, and I'd rather you be okay, because okay is better than, I'm sure, the beginning when you're not okay. And so tell me about your baby from the time you were pregnant or found out that you were pregnant, because I grew up with, me and Jazz have been friends, which is his cousin. We've been friends for middle school, so that's over 10 years. So I remember him being a little kid. Yeah. I don't remember him as an adult. So walk me through that.
He was pretty much always the same. Always the same. He always had that personality, and he was just like full of a lot of charisma. He was like the poster child, I guess. And at first, I didn't really know how to balance it, but he grew on me, like he grew on everyone else so easy. But he was just always what you see is exactly what he was, just full of life.
Yes. And so we've seen a lot of his clips, a lot of him performing, and he get the crowd hype, and it's like, oh, like we know who he is when he steps on the scene, period. And so he made a name for himself out here. And walk me through the day that you got the news, because we're approaching how many years? It's March. So it'll be 3 years this month?
Next month, March 28th.
Oh, but we're in February. So in March, it'll be
3 years.
Wow. So you get this call. Walk me through it.
Well, I was asleep. It was about 5 a.m. I was asleep, and I just kind of rolled over, and you kind of check your phone when you roll over. And I just had like a lot of phone calls and messages, and like calls were coming in while I was trying to see my phone. And a call came in from his friend on Messenger. And when I opened it, he was like, "Mom's." And I'm like, "What's up?" And then the phone rang. And he's like, "I don't know what happened, but they're saying that Luck is dead." And I kind of just froze. Like you would normally expect like something happened or we don't know what's going on with him. But for that to just be the initial statement, like that he's just gone, I didn't really know what was going on at that time. And then I just kind of assumed that he had been in an accident because he loved fast cars. And during those hours, he's always out and he's like at the races and things like that. So that was my initial thought. And nobody, of course, really knew what was going on. So I didn't want to react before I actually knew what was going on. So I was just kind of froze.
And so you're trying to gather your thoughts. I can just imagine. I know it's a tough feeling. And so you're trying to gather your thoughts and you're like, okay, I got to get there. I don't even know what's what? I don't know where my child is. I don't even know probably half these people calling me, but they're blowing my phone up. I have no clue. I was asleep. And so you're getting your things on and you're trying to figure out, how am I going to get there? That ride, which I'm sure was a very long ride. Walk me through that.
So I had woke my daughter up. She was 13 at the time. So I had woke her up and I'm like, grab some clothes on, get dressed. We got to go. And again, I didn't want to say anything to her just yet, but I know she knew something was wrong. Like, we've kind of been in that situation before, but we knew what was going on. So, I was trying to get there. I'm making phone calls. I'm calling my mom. I went to get my other son because I was calling him. He wasn't answering. So we drove to his apartment and I'm banging on the door. When he finally comes out, I'm telling him what happened. And we go back to the car and I'm kind of trying to keep it together because my daughter's in the car and I just didn't want to expose her so soon. And again, the calls are coming in and everyone's like, I'm trying to get the address. And that's what was confusing because by this time they're telling me what happened, but no one knows where. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this story, but it happened at a store.
Which is AMP?
Yes. And then he was driven to a house or outside of a house. So that's why no one really knew where he was. And then as the address came through, I rushed there. And when I rushed there, it was so many people out there. And then it was all taped off. Sorry.
No, trust me, you're okay. You're okay. Take your time.
It was all taped off. And there were like people that I knew and they were just coming up to me and they were, of course, like hugging me and saying sorry. But at this point, I still want to know what happened.
Right.
And my daughter's in the car. And my son, he's just yelling. And he's crying. And I just go back to the car at this point. Thank you. And my daughter was already crying. So I just broke down with her and I just held her.
No, you're okay. Take your time.
So then the police come over there and they're talking to me. And I'm asking what's going on. And of course, they can't give me much information. And I'm telling them that I'm his mother. And they were just like, it was a shooting. It's still under investigation. And it was overwhelming because as I'm still not knowing what's going on, they still won't let me see him or anything. But the crowd is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I just didn't know what to do.
And so as a bystander, someone who has watched his career develop on social media, if I'm not mistaken, he was shot before this happened. And so I'm sure that at this moment, you're not thinking clearly, or you may be reflecting like, well, maybe there's still hope.
Exactly.
Because, he just survived something, similar. And so when they explain to you what is going on, what are the feelings that you had as a mother? You had this baby when you were a baby. So this is somebody that you grew up with and you nurtured and you cared for. So every feeling is valid. What are some of the feelings that you had?
The only feeling I really could explain is just the shock. Like, I was just in disbelief. And I don't question God, of course, but like even still to this day, I ask myself, like, how did I lose a child? Like, me of all people, how? And I think I may have over-sheltered them, and kept them from so many things. So it was like, it's just a question of like, why me? How me? Like, how him of all people? Because he didn't bother anybody, and he was on the right path. He knew what he wanted. He was focused on that. And then he had just had a baby. Literally, she was going on 3 months. So it was like, he has a baby. Like, what are we gonna do about his baby? It was hard. It is hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. And we're going to talk about baby K later, y'all. That's a little spicy baby. We're going to talk about her later. But I want to get more into depth with where you are now, because it's been almost 3 years. And so I know just from the outside looking in, and by the grace of God, I haven't lost a child. So I don't know that experience. I don't know those feelings. But my grandparents have lost my mother. And I just remember seeing them go through the process, because it's different when someone dies of natural causes other than suicide or them being taken from you. So when it's a tragedy and it's unexpected, it's a different feeling. And so I watched my grandparents go through every level of grief and just trying to hold it together, because I'm a grandparent and I still have to make sure that the kids are okay. Right. And so a lot of times they were so selfless. They were very selfless in the situation of, okay, she has children here, so we got to figure this out. We can't really be in our emotions. But now as an adult looking back, I wish they would have channeled those emotions more. And so where are you now, grandmother and mother, because you still have one underage? So where are you now mentally?
All over the place.
And I know you have Big Girl and Dance. I've seen
yes, that. Yeah. I try to stay busy as possible with my daughter, my granddaughter, of course, with his clothing, just anything even music, anything to keep me busy. Because when I'm not busy, that's when I fear getting like really down and isolating myself, because I know that's when the problem really starts. And, like, we just lost his father a couple months ago.
Whoa, I did not know that.
Yeah, and I know that he was extremely depressed, and he didn't know how to deal with what he was dealing with. And he's one of those men that feel like men shouldn't have emotions and things like that. He would always tell me with everything I was doing that I'm stronger than him, and that he doesn't know how to maintain or cope with what's going on. And that's what's crazy. Like, people they see me on the outside, and yes, I may be strong, but I definitely go through a lot of emotions and everything. So I just try to take it one day at a time. Like I was telling you, like, this week has been an emotional roller coaster for me, like up and down. On my way here last night, like, my boyfriend walked in and he's like, "What's wrong?" I'm crying, and, it's like, what's wrong, but all I could really say is like nothing, because it's just something that I have to go through. But I don't think I did. Even when I was going to counseling and I talked to her, I don't think I just went through the normal cycle. Like, my grief it was all out of order. And as you said, because I do have younger children, I do have a grandchild. Even my son, he's 21 now, and it's like I'm always trying to be strong for them. I don't want them to see me because I'm sure you know when you see your mom down, you're going to be down, or when you see anyone you love down. So I try to be strong for them and deal with my emotions in private. But, I mean, sometimes it gets the best of me.
And I'm sure, and that's nothing light. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you lost a puppy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
No offense to people who have lost animals, but when you carry that child and you're the one who pushed that child out and risked your life to bring them here, and you're the one who sacrificed to raise them and raise them to the best of your abilities. And I heard you say something that caught my attention, and you're like, well, maybe I did this wrong, or maybe I sheltered them. And I'm just here to tell you, I witnessed as him being a little kid, and you're a great mom. So that the enemy will have you doubting yourself, like, maybe I did this wrong, but we have to accept the plans of God, regardless of what it looks like. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it don't always feel good, you know, but I do feel like this will be used as a very big testimony. And he has a legacy. He didn't just leave with nothing. Right. You know what I mean? So you still have something that is a part of him. You know what I mean? And you can hold on to her. And so I'm here to just tell you to stay encouraged. You did nothing wrong. There's no manual on raising your kids. So when people tell you this is how you need to do it, no, that's crap. There's no manual. There's nobody telling you how you should do X, Y, and Z, because our parents did the best that they could. And they didn't know everything, but they worked what they had, and which is what we're doing. There's no manual to it. So all you can do is ask God, okay, am I doing this right? You know what I mean? Did I handle that correctly? You know, and keep going and keep going. I feel like your mind right now is in a survival mode, and I just got to make it because I've taken this big loss. And at some point when those feelings come back and you have to deal with that grief, you'll be able to understand a little bit more about life just in general. And you can attack that a different way versus just being down in the dumps or depressed about it. You'll be able to see it in a different light. So keep doing what you are doing. It is amazing. And I do know that you have a brand that you branded after your son. So tell me about that.
So it's Lucky 2 times. And then I also do Lucky the Goat. He has like a little logo. It's a little baby goat. He always wanted a clothing line. And at the time, I didn't want to plaster his face on a shirt. And that's something he always said, like, if something was to ever happen to me, don't do that. Don't put the wings on my back and things like that. So that's all for him. All for him.
That's dope. And I'm just grateful to see that you're still surviving. You're still here with us, and you are keeping his legacy alive. If anybody wants to purchase, where can they go? Lucky2x.com. Okay.
LUCCY, the number 2x.com.
Perfect. And lastly, the thing I wanted to talk about, baby K. Yeah. How is she? Is she anything like her daddy?
Yes, completely.
Yeah.
Completely.
How's that? Your grandma. You're a young grandma.
I know. You know, I was in denial, especially when he first told me that her mom was pregnant. I'm like, I mean, I'm young for one, but so are you, and you have a career. Like, what are you doing? I didn't accept it at all. I was like, my son is having a baby, but I would never be like, I'm going to be a grandma. I was in denial. And then when she was here, he would always tease me like, oh, talk to your granny, talk to grandma, every grandma name you could think of. And like, she calls me granny. She calls my mom Nana, and she calls me granny. And I love it.
Yeah.
I love it completely. Of course, that's bittersweet because she looks so much like him.
Yes. Yes.
Even like when he was the age that she is now, they're identical.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But I'm thankful for her, and she's full of character. She's 3. She just turned 3 last month and can have a complete full conversation.
Yeah.
More than a conversation. Like, she could write a book with you. Like, she keep you going and going and going. She just went home last night, but
that's amazing.
yeah.
So I'm glad you have something to hold on to.
Yeah.
That's good. And so what advice would you give a mom who has suffered the way that you have?
Just hold on. Don't blame yourself, because the devil will try to make you blame yourself. And really just be selfish. Be selfish with your time and with your healing, because a lot of people there's seasons to grief. Like, there's people that are there when it first happens. There's people that come along a couple months later, and so on and so on. And then there's people, I'm sorry, it must be 11/11. There's people that they're only there when it's time to celebrate, like his birthday or his death date, or if I'm doing something for him. And they're overbearing. They can be overbearing.
Yes.
So taking time, or knowing to take that time and when to tell people to stay away, it's important. Absolutely. Because it'll drive you crazy. Absolutely. Honestly. Other than that, I'm still learning. Yeah. I'm still trying to deal with it. I hear that it'll never go away, and I'm pretty sure, like, I'll never tell you. I'm only going on 3 years. Yeah. But, like, my life will never be the same. And that's a problem for me, because that beats me up all the time, knowing that my life will never be the same.
And so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Miss Krissie here, mother of Lucky 2-time. You did something that was significant, and I noticed that you always post that time on your story. Tell me about that really quickly.
So he was big on numbers, very big. He studied them, and 11/11 was his favorite numbers. You know, those are angel numbers, and they say it's to bring blessing and just positivity, and courage is what it represents. And of course, it reminds me of him. So, like, if he was here, you would always see it all the time. So it's just a reminder of him.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and giving us your stories, sharing with us your side of the story, because I know that took a lot of strength and a lot of courage, but we appreciate your time. And so thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in with Sitting with Sandra and Miss Krissie. Make sure you go purchase your Lucky 2 Times merch. And that's all we have for today. Tune in again with Sitting with Sandra.